We're talking preseason, and there's so much going on. You know, the Valkyries, the new expansion franchise for the WNBA, they had their first preseason game, first game in that building in their new arena. The court looks absolutely beautiful. And over 17,000 people showed up, Khristina, for a game in the Bay on a night while the Golden State Warriors were playing. And yes, they were away, they were out of town, but the Bay Area does not just have one team, we know that, and they don't just have one basketball team, their new basketball team, the Golden State Valkyries, and I thought this was amazing to have this kind of turnout. And their president, Jess Smith, always talks about the fact that the WNBA fan wants the WNBA first and foremost, and that there's actually less than 5% overlap between their season ticket holders and the Golden State Warriors season ticket holders. And I feel like that game I think that was 2 nights ago now, is an embodiment of that, right? The fact that like they can bring their own crowd independent of their male counterparts. They have their own fans. The WNBA and WNBA teams have their own fans. And it was the 3rd largest, Khristina, preseason game turnout in WNBA history.
I think one of the coolest things that I've been able to see over the years of covering the W is that it's becoming easier to be a fan of women's basketball by making the games accessible, making it affordable. I remember when the Golden State Valkyries first started to build the organization and what it would look like, and people were putting down deposits before they even knew what players would be on the team, right? They sold out those season ticket deposits before they even had a team, before they had a coach. And so I think that speaks to the culture of the ownership of Golden State and the Golden State Valkyries as well, how they see the entire organization as one. And then also I had a chance to go to the Bay Area for NBA All-Star and do some interviews with Tiffany Hayes and some of the Valkyries out there before the season started. And just to see the community, like they really support and love basketball. And I think that that's the common denominator when you talk about having the fans come in. And it's happening at a really great time where women's sports is continuing its momentum post Caitlin Clark getting drafted, but also just the excitement around expansion, right? And providing new cities with women's basketball. So I think that the Bay is the perfect place to be when it comes to women's basketball, just as much as any other city. So I love how they are supporting the Valkyries.
I agree. And, obviously I have experience covering Golden State Warriors, so I'm familiar with the ownership group over there. And I know everyone isn't always a fan of the NBA owner being the same as the WNBA owner, but I think in this case, it's a safe investment. I trust Joe Lacob to handle the job well. So bravo. I mean, I think honestly, the Valkyries, some people nitpick things about, their jerseys or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, I think the way that they've been moving since the team has been announced has been great. I will tell you though, Khristina, my one nitpick for the Valkyries is I did not appreciate them cutting Cheyenne Sellers. That was not on my bingo card to happen. And, I realized that it's not really uncommon in the WNBA for rookies to not make a roster. And in this case, Cheyenne Sellers, who was projected to be a first-round pick, fell, which I think surprised many, into the second round. And the Valkyries did draft her in the second round. But because of the legacy she had in college and what she was projected to be, I just don't think many saw her getting cut. So I was a little surprised by that. I was very happy to see that the Atlanta Dream picked her up off waivers. And I'm just really hoping that Cheyenne Sellers is able to make a home there. I think she's a WNBA player, and I would like to see her succeed. So I have all praise for the Valkyries, but I did not love that cut that they made, Khristina.
So I know this is like a really tough part of the preseason where a lot of fans are going to get their hearts broken because your favorite player might not be on your favorite team come the start of the season. So take a quick second with me and inhale in Excel.
Hmm.
Because this is going to be crazy. Final cuts have to be made. Teams are going to go down to 12 and in some cases 11 players based off the hard salary cap, right? And so sometimes that means that coaches and GMs have to make those tough decisions. Now, just because a player is cut doesn't necessarily mean that's the end of the road for them.
For sure.
And as you said, Cheyenne Sellers was picked up by the Atlanta Dream. And I think Coach Natalie Nakase said something that was very key when she was asked by, I think, Kendra Andrews at ESPN about
Mm.
the decision to cut her. She said she didn't fit into where they were going. So
Yeah,
I
she
think
said it
what people have
wasn't
to
about.
remember,
I'm sorry. She said
it
it
wasn't
wasn't
about the
about.
talent. It
Yes.
wasn't about the talent. It's about the fit. And I think that especially for rookies this year, you want to try to get on a team where the fit is going to work, right? Where you can maximize the amount of minutes that you're going to play on the floor to show everything that you have, and a team that will be able to retain you, right, as talent. Because next year, 2026, a lot of people are going to be free agents and there's going to be a new CBA,
Right.
fingers crossed. And so this is going to be your audition tape for not only the short term, but for the long term. And so, you have to get in where you fit in. And so, yeah, a lot of tough decisions are going to be made, not only for the Valkyries, but a lot of teams in and around the WNBA this week leading up to opening night on the 16th. So,
For sure.
WNBA fans, brace yourselves.
And look, everything you said is accurate, and I definitely should not be challenging my namesake, Natalie, because Natalie Nakase definitely knows more basketball than me, and yet I'm still going to do it. I just cannot believe that you can't find a way to fit a talent like Cheyenne Sellers. And also, I just think as an expansion team, especially, you don't want to waste draft capital, right? Like they're a brand new team. So I feel like they're still trying to establish their identity. And because there likely will be a lot of movement next season, like you're going to want players who are on like long contracts that are committed to you and who can play and that, can offer something to you. So it's still a surprising move to me, but everything happens for a reason. And like I said, I'm wishing, Cheyenne so much success in
And
Atlanta.
look, for what it's worth, I really liked what I saw in that preseason game against LA Sparks. I mean, it was really like a game of runs and they didn't lose by much. And so I really like what I see for them early on. And obviously, you said we trust Natalie's vision, right, for the team and for the system that she's trying to put together. And so I think that we could just hang tight. And I think that we can definitely look forward to seeing what this team does. I love that this team is compiled of a bunch of players who were probably on other teams as role players who probably didn't get a lot of burn. And now they instantly get put into the spotlight and get the opportunity to be stars, right, this season. Players like Monique Billings, who after she got weight or left the Atlanta Dream, she was bouncing from team to team to team to team. Kayla Thornton, she found a home with the New York Liberty, won a championship last year. Now she gets to be a leader with the Golden State Valkyries. So I like that this team is compiled of a bunch of dogs, a bunch of players who have a lot to prove. And so I think that we should just stick around and wait and see what unfolds this season for the Valkyries. And, throughout the season, there'll be opportunities if it's not working out for them to make adjustments. There is a trade deadline in the WNBA. So we saw how effective that was for a team like the Minnesota Lynx last year, where they traded for Maisha Hines-Allen post-Olympic break and was able to get to the finals. And so there will be times throughout the season where, adjustments can be made if it's not working out.
For sure. And I'm glad that you did bring up the game, though, and the scenario described, because Letitia Amihere,
Yes.
she had an amazing game, right? 20 points, 7 of 11 from, on field goals. She just had a tremendous night. But I wanna point her out because she came from the Atlanta Dream. She was a first-round draft pick in 2023, and she really never got any minutes with that team, And she has a lot of people supporting her because she played for the South Carolina Gamecocks. So we already know how that fan base, they follow their players, and it runs deep. So I was just happy to see her have a performance like that coming off the bench. So I'm hoping she does make that roster, and that could be a really good opportunity for her. So those are really excellent points. There are a couple of other rookies I'm paying attention to see. I mean, obviously, it's not just rookies competing for roster spots, but we know with each season now, there's a lot of attention being played to the new rookies and the incoming class, coming in. So, I think it's safe to say that Sonia Citron is probably gonna, make it. But she had her welcome to the league moment from a Brittney Griner screen, and I just thought it was pretty funny. And she just said, I feel so welcome to the league. I mean, I'm just trying to defend my person, and clearly I didn't see her. She's a big, strong woman. So I thought that was really funny. And she said she just definitely had to kind of lay there for a minute. So welcome to the league, Sonia Citron. But she looked great, and I think she'll probably definitely be making the Mystics roster.
Yeah, and I really love what I've seen from her these first couple preseason games. And might I add that I think that I know everyone's hell-bent on Paige being Rookie of the Year, but the flashes that I'm seeing from Sonia, I think that she could definitely be in the running early pick for Rookie of the Year, just based off the amount of load that's she has responsibility for as a player on the Washington Mystics and the impact that she's making early on. She is easily transitioning into the WNBA. She looks like she's pro ready already in these first couple preseason games. And Natalie, I couldn't imagine getting screened by Brittney Griner. I think I would have laid there as well.
I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw it. I was like, damn, BG, you ain't have to do her like that.
Could you imagine? I wouldn't want to get screened by BG or Alyssa Thomas. Those are two players that I don't want to smoke with. Okay. So kudos to Sonia for handling that, because that is insane. That's a brick wall right there.
For sure. You mentioned Paige Bueckers, and we can't talk about the preseason without talking about her, and that she also debuted for the Dallas Wings. And even though they came up short against the Las Vegas Aces, I just thought it was really cool. That game was at Notre Dame, and there were several players from Notre Dame. Arike, you also had obviously the players from Vegas and Jewel, and also Jackie. So it was cool. They had many of Notre Dame players there for that game, and they played that in Notre Dame's arena. I thought that was just a really cool thing. And Paige had a good showing. They had a number of their rookies. Isaiah James had a good showing. JJ Quinterly, who was their third round pick, she was the leading scorer that night. She did her thing.
Might be the steal of the draft, might I say, because she was impacting the ball on both sides of the floor. And to your point, yes, they played at Notre Dame. A couple WNBA games obviously were nationally televised, but also I love, again, going back to my earlier point of, they're making it easier to be a WNBA fan by making these games accessible, but also bridging the gap in fandom between college and the pros. In years past, it was so hard to figure out, not from our end, but maybe from the W's end, on how can there not be a disconnect once the college season ends? How can we carry that momentum over? And they figured it out with bringing some of these preseason games back to some of the pro players' alma maters. And so I love that the game was there. And as you said, there are some rookies who have been surprisingly good. Paige Bueckers, although people were looking at the box score and, oh, she didn't score that much. You guys got to remember, there's so many different levels to Paige Bueckers' game. She's efficient. She gets her teammates going. She can facilitate. She impacts on defense. And so we just saw one part of her game in that preseason. But also, when you get to the pros, you're not going to have the same responsibilities that you had in college. You have to fit into a system. And so I think that as the Dallas Wings continues to play together and build chemistry, they obviously have a lot to figure out. Chris Klokanis, as a new head coach, a lot to figure out with this team, because there's so many different pieces. And I feel like they're still trying to figure out, what is the offensive system going to look like? Obviously, you have that 1-2 punch in Paige and Arike, but then how are you going to utilize Dejanay Carrington? How are you going to utilize Nalissa Smith? Tiara McCowan as a big, or before the preseason ends, will you waive some players and go out and get another big? I know that was a lot of discussion going into on social media this past week in terms of the fit and the pregame reactions. The preseason reactions. So we'll see. We'll see.
Queen Egbo, probably a name to watch, who just recently got waived from the aces that Dallas may want to consider as another big to add to their team. So, I mean, we talked about JJ Cornelly and her playing on both ends. And one of the players that she picked the pocket of a lot was Deja Kelly. And I don't want to put Deja on the Summer Jam screen because she actually has been tremendous for the aces so far. Gone undrafted, and they've had some wave some players already, and she has made all the cuts so far. So Deja Kelly still being there, 15 points, 2 assists. She shot 71.4%. But this doesn't even tell the whole story because this was in their second game, Khristina. It was A1 night, and the starters didn't play most of the game, and Asia's focused on celebrating her shoe. Of course, they all performed well. But Deja comes in and wins the game for them. She hit the game winner. She had like the last few shots. She had a key three. She was operating in the mid-range. I know some coaches want to call that the manure strip, but you know what? It was working for Deja Kelly that night. She helped the Aces win the game. And I love this for Deja. You come in undrafted, which surprised me a little bit that she didn't get drafted at all. You get a look by the Aces, and now I think she has a legitimate shot to make that roster.
No, absolutely. And I had a chance to speak to Deja Kelly prior to Oregon's appearance in the NCAA tournament. And she talked about how she wanted to change the perception around the type of player she was to WNBA GMs. But I also think and love that the Aces picked her up because she talked about also it being a full circle moment for her. When she was younger, she used to go to San Antonio Stars games and watch players like Becky as well. So this is a full circle moment for her to be at Aces training camp under a player like Becky Hammond, who was also undrafted as well when she came into the WNBA. So I think that she can learn a lot from the coaching staff, but also from the veteran players. But she has a chip on her shoulder because she was not drafted. And so she has a lot to prove. And we know how tough training camps can be around the league when teams have to start making those cuts. And, you see the impact. I had a chance to talk to Callie Finn earlier this week, and she talked about how Deja Kelly has a connection to John Lucas, who is an assistant coach who she works out with. And so having that relationship and having the will to want to work and make the team, I think is carrying her through. And the mid-range is her bread and butter. I know that some coaches like to say, as you said, it's the manure strip, it's a lost art. But, and I'm going to say this, just looking at the NBA games, right? We see how effective it could be inside the arc. That's all I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. So it's not a lost art. It's just what you do with it. And she hit the game winner. And so I love her confidence. And I think that she has a really, really good shot at making this Aces roster.
Yeah, and I would actually love to see that. The Aces are going to have interesting choices on their hands. Unfortunately, they do have some player injuries, which we never want to see, but that might actually buy them a little bit more time with some players if they put anyone on injury reserve. Also, Parker Tyus pregnancy. So that might be able to get them some more time with some of these players while they figure out their roster situation. But, Becky Hammond said it's one of the hardest parts of her job, but they definitely have some potential good pieces to add that we've seen so far in preseason. So, listen, yeah. Khristina, thank you so much for joining me. Those were just, look, there's so much about the WNBA preseason right now. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Brazil national team. There's just so much. So if coming and playing, the Sky and the Fever, Caitlin Clark going back to Iowa, Angel going back to LSU. So the preseason is popping, like we said. And if you are not watching it, there's still some time to check out a few more games. Get your WNBA League Pass. Make sure you watch the games right now. Everything's free for you to preview because it's good and it's going to be a really exciting WNBA season. Khristina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Natalie. This was a lot of fun.